2 years ago today began a series of events that eventually led to one of the best decisions of my life. Here's my story of what finally drove me to therapy, my process for selecting a therapist, and my experience so far talking to a professional every other week about my life. The idea of therapy wasn't brand new. In fact, just earlier that summer, the summer of 2019, I had grabbed the ear of my friend Colin to ask about getting started. I was nervous. I didn't know how to start or what to say or how much they'd help. It felt overwhelming just to get my foot in the door, and I kept putting up roadblocks. His advice to me was just do it. Do the research, check the insurance, make the call, and just start. So I made a promise to him and did just that. I researched, checked insurance, tried to find what I was looking for, and I came up empty. Partly because I wasn't terribly committed to the cause, but mostly because the insurance website wasn't ideal. It wasn't clear how much insurance would actually help, and I was just turned off by the whole experience. Fast forward 5 months. On the Sunday before Thanksgiving, a relationship that I was super excited about ended suddenly, against my will. This almost directly led to one of the worst holidays I can remember. I was sad, contentious, and lonely. 3 weeks later, I found out my mom had stage 4 cancer. And while that actually led to one of the best holidays I can remember, the course had been set for my foray into therapy. Shout out to the website Psychology Today for changing my life. The experience that I had with my insurance was wiped away by the seamless and effective way to find help. Under the Find a Therapist tab, you can have options to search for therapists, psychiatrists, treatment centers, or support groups. You can filter by location, gender, age focus, types of therapy, area of expertise, insurance accepted, and more. Every result comes with a name, a picture, a title, and a self-written bio on what they believe and how they treat their patients. I was blown away with the ease and depth of the process and narrowed my search to find what I believed I was looking for. I took my time and found someone who seemed easy to talk to and who I would feel comfortable sharing everything with. I believe you can tell a lot by seeing someone, so the dating profile-esque vibe put my mind at ease, and I was in a way that I was not expecting. When I first thought about therapy, the reasons were my relationships with both women and alcohol. But now I had to add a third major topic. From day one with my therapist, I was open and honest about everything and anything. We only had 3 or 4 sessions live before the pandemic sent us remote, but I am so lucky that it timed out the way it did. Within no time, I was thrust into one of the most emotionally exhausting periods of my life, all the while meeting every other week to talk through all the shit that was going on. Many people, especially skeptics, have asked about the impact that therapy has had on me. I'm a relatively thoughtful person who's good with words, tends to be a source of advice for friends and family, and generally has his shit together. So it's not surprising that some people were confused when I made this decision, which is part of the stigma that I'm trying to shed here. Just because I've done work on myself over the last 20 plus years to get to where I am today, both mentally and emotionally, does not exempt me from this journey. So here's what I found to be the most useful, helpful, and influential outcomes in these last 22 months. I have unburdened my friends mostly. I am a talker. I like catching up with people. I do lunches and happy hours and dinners and drinks and whatever I can to maintain connections and relationships. And I talk about real shit. I don't have much of a filter, and I really depended on the thoughts and opinions of my nearest and dearest. It's not that I give terrible advice, but if I'm constantly dumping my heaviness onto anyone I have a conversation with, that's just not right or healthy for our relationship. Talking to a professional has removed the need for the people close to me to play any more of a role than being my friend, which I've noticed a positive impact of. Keep the nonstop advice sessions for the professional, and you'll see a change in your day-to-day interactions. Number 2, speaking of advice, there are times that I literally don't know what to do. My therapist can play that role, especially now that we've talked so much for so long. Being open with her has allowed her to better understand me, so she's quite capable of pointing me in the right direction. This doesn't happen so often for me, but it's an amazing feeling to have knowing that the option exists. Number 3, confirmation. If you've ever attended a trade show or an industry conference or anything like that, if you're anything like me, you go in with the high expectations that your entire professional world will change, and what you find out is that you're actually farther ahead than so many other peers. You're good, and that might be a steep price to pay, but finding out that what you're doing is ahead of the game is fulfilling and important. The same principle applies to therapy. Every time that I tell my therapist something that I've done or said or even thought, and it's met with praise or kudos, it's a success. Validation that I'm not crazy is shockingly important. And number 4, speaking of validation, the last point is a theory that I've kind of not quite found the right name for. So if you have an idea, let me know and I'll use it next time I talk about it. But I call it the therapy fallacy. And what I mean is, I don't always do or say or think the way that I necessarily want to. But I know that if I'm being honest, the next time that I have a session, I'm going to have to tell her that story. And I don't want that story to be painting me in a shitty light. So I'm facing a decision or a conversation. If I'm doing that, I want to decide or converse in a way that would make my therapist proud. And while this sounds kind of like I'm living a fake version of my life, the truth is, through making those decisions or acting those ways, in theory, I'm making the world around me better. And there's an element here of kind of fake it till you make it, right? So make the decisions that your therapist would approve, see the positive impact of those choices, and then make it a habit or a belief. All of these outcomes are valuable to me for different reasons. You might have a different experience than I've had to this point. There are so many variables and nuances to every situation, I can't possibly cover them all today. But what I can say is this: do not wait for something traumatic to happen in your life before starting therapy. If you go, give it your all, hold nothing back. Get out of the experience whatever makes the most sense to you. And lastly, do not feel ashamed. Ever. I'll end this with a short story. I was sitting at the bar waiting for my dinner partner when I overheard an older duo on a date next to me. It seemed like a very early date, maybe a first date, but probably more like a second and third date, one of those, right? I heard the woman open one of her statements with, "I was just talking about that in therapy." Now, me from 15, 10, maybe even 5 years ago, I would have told that man to run for the door and never look back, because that woman is crazy. Now, with my experiences and my perspective, I can honestly say that that person sounds like the healthiest person in the world to me. So help me spread the word, like, share, do whatever you can to this video, donate to my Movember page, whatever you can do, help end the stigma of therapy, and hopefully the story is an inspiration to you. Take care of yourself.